Linask. I'm here at IT Expo East 2011 down in Miami, Florida. I'm talking with Christian Goffi. He's with AVAYA's Professional Services Group. Christian, thanks for joining me.
Thank you, Eric.
Obviously there are a lot of exciting topics that we're talking about here this week at IT Expo. A lot of new and exciting technologies, innovative technologies, many of which AVAYA's got a hand in as well. You've got a little different perspective on it in terms of you help people solve the business case around them, make the business case around these new technologies, maybe even decide which of these new technologies are best to implement.
Right. Yeah, that's from a business consulting perspective, which that's precisely what we're talking about here. We try to make business sense out of a technology idea or a technology project that a customer might be thinking about. Now, what are some of the things that may get in the way of selecting the right thing is, having your eye on the wrong ball is always something that we talk about, right? We talk a lot about being fit for purpose and being user-centric. So collaboration is a big deal to us. Our product roadmap is really built around shifting the way that we communicate. And about a year and a half ago, we talked about AVAYA Aura, which was a lot about getting the house in order from an infrastructure perspective. Hey, what if we had a master translator SIP management platform that can talk to all the systems? Wouldn't it be beautiful? So here we are. What are some of the benefits that can bring to you? So now we talk about the AVAYA Flair experience, which is how do you bring that all together and bring the benefits of that unity into the user and change the way that we communicate, bring context into the equation. How does this impact the contact center experience, et cetera, et cetera. Now, all that being said, some of the things that tend to get in the way that we help from a consulting perspective is being fit for purpose also means that it has to make financial sense. It has to make technical sense. And it has to make sense for the needs of your users. So the first step that we take is a discovery process by which we identify, how much are we listening to users? Do we know our users? How would we segment them out? And take a backward approach that starts selecting technologies based on needs as opposed to based on a current state of a platform and how do I upgrade to the next level. So business case reasoning, user centricity are two primary drivers that we use, and we put that into our methodology in putting together our deliverables that in the end turn out to be recommendations.
So when you make these recommendations, how much does the impact on the IT group at any particular business factor in terms of any time you implement these new technologies, whether you bring in the Aura platform, whether you're whatever you're bringing in, it's got an impact. It's got to be managed. It's got to be deployed, things like that. So how much does that factor in?
Absolutely, and that's one of the, I guess we could say, one of the first forks in the road, right? Which is once we're seeing a product or a solution or a type of technology. It's identifying, is this more of an IT impact or is more of a user impact? So obviously the closer you get to an IT administration, we're talking infrastructure, but does it really impact too much the way a user uses technology? Not really. Aura being an example of that, it's about infrastructure. If we're in the opposite end of the spectrum, then you talk about AVAYA Flair, which is an endpoint device. It's about bringing context and has a lot to do with the graphical user interface that a user interacts with. Then very high relevance to the user. That's where we have an entire service package built around user adoption. It's understanding the fact that training in its traditional sense had a lot to do with how do I train an IT administrator to administer a platform. Now taking a sense of, we're rolling out these products that bring business value and a promise that if we don't gain adoption to the rate that we need, the business value is just not going to bring itself. So our job is to help IT leadership understand the impacts of a low adoption of a technology project and create a whole program for them to be successful in that and realize the business value that comes with it.
How important, we talk about ease of implementation, ease of deployment, ease of use, all of the ease of management. How important, now on both ends, on the IT side and on the end user side, how important is ease of X or simplicity?
Oh, it's not important at all. No, I'm just kidding. It's extremely important. And now, let's talk about some of the key decisions going on right now. The evolution of the data center is a huge one, right? So conceptually, very easy to understand. Now, before you needed 1,000 boxes, now we're really moving heavily into virtualization. You don't need that many, but there's still, interconnections. There's still handoffs. There's still management concerns. Extremely important. I mean, the complexity that's going to come via this endpoint, explosion that's happening with tablet PCs and smartphones, etc. And all of these having thousands of apps that go with it, external cloud, internal cloud. I mean, the level of complexity is just becoming exponential. So extremely important, I mean, to say the least.
Sure. And obviously there's a significant interest here at the Miami show from the Latin America markets. Is there a difference in terms of the recommendations and the consulting advice that you provide geographically, specifically with regards to the Latin American markets?
Absolutely. I think the greater you get into the face of the user, the more of a cultural element that also comes into play. And culturally speaking, the Latin American culture is different than the North American culture. It's much more relationship driven. So conceptually, when you look at the shift that's going on in the U.S. toward teleworking, toward a mobile workforce, a lot of those concepts apply as well. However, a Latin American culture is very, very much relationship driven. I think you have to go a little bit farther than the traditional tools that you have available to you in the U.S. And a virtual environment is a great example of how to bring the mobile workforce closer and continue to build on that relationship driven. Also, the Latin American market is very different when it comes to costs. Telecommunications costs are very different. We still have a lot of countries that are calling party pays. So when you're on your cell phone, it makes a big deal whether you make a call, whether you receive a call. So being smart in your call routing is extremely important. It makes a big, big impact on budgets. So a lot of differences, a lot of similarities as well. But the Latin American tends to be a little bit behind the U.S. as far as adoption to certain respects. But you do have to take the cultural differences into account.
That relationship-driven environment seems an ideal opportunity for the Flare.
Oh, absolutely. And Flare is really about breaking down those silos and that impersonal touch. That it's sad to say, but we have grown as a enterprise environment to the point where sometimes we'd rather send an email than get a step out of our office and talk to someone who's very nearby. Flare brings you a little bit closer together, and it's very interesting the way that technology has evolved. In that we seem to have lost that personal touch, and now with social media and with devices like the Flare experience, we're bringing some of that personal touch back into technology and allowing for that mobile evolution to continue, but still not losing sight of what makes us special, which is people doing business with people.
So you mentioned the Latin American markets tending to be a little bit behind North America. Are they catching up?
I think so. I mean, and when I say behind, there's actually some elements that they're ahead. I mean, when it comes to gadgets, I find that Latin America is actually ahead of the United States. But when it comes to infrastructure, I mean, the capital available within a mature country like the U.S. is just not quite what it is in some other countries. So the availability of SIP trunking, the availability of some of these higher end offerings, such as cloud computing. I mean, it takes a little bit more time in order for the pipes to be ready to handle the content. Mentally, the market's ready; they want it, but you also got to realize that the infrastructure sometimes is just not quite there yet.
The market's ready; the users are ready. I'm not sure that in a lot of the markets, the operators, the providers are ready.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's exactly what I'm trying to say.
Excellent.
Okay.
Christian, thank you so much for joining me. I've been talking here at IT Expo East in Miami, Florida, with Christian Goffi from AVAYA Professional Services.
Thank you, Erik.
Thanks.